body bags where horror lies.
Hello and welcome to Body Bags. My name is James and I'm your Sundown Art Reviewer. And this evening I'll be finishing up our 1997 week with, John Hyman, his name? Trying to think of the director's name. He did like End of Days and Time Cop and Outlander and things like that. I think it's John Hyman. Anyway, he decided to tackle 1997's The Relic. I know the 90s gets hated on a lot for not being a great decade within horror, but I think as a personal view, I think a majority or a heavy amount of people, one of their go-to genres is slashers, and the 90s was very bad for slashers. Take away Scream, and I think personally very, very, very poor. But for creature features, I think they start to flourish more. I think they got a little bit more, how could you say that? They got more adventurous with the kind of real birth of CGI in the 90s, and that kind of exploded quite a lot for creature features. Yeah, there's some bad ones and some bad CG, especially like in this one has some bad CG, but I like that when films are made, they try to stick to the practical effects and only go to the CG when that reaches just too much from practical, which is what they did with The Relic. I thought that they kind of like covered that quite well, because it could have really just been like, some films from the 90s just, well, in the 2000s as well, just get fully CG'd, and they didn't do this. So you think like Deep Star 6, Leviathan, things like that. It's like practical impossible. And well, actually they don't really have CGI. This is one where it kind of bridged beyond those early 90s. Well, was Deep Star 6 late 80s maybe, and Leviathan was like 91 or something, but this was the kind of the bridge to more progression. It's like you have that practical stuff and then you push on with the CG. But anyway, we have kind of in the 90s, it's like Tom Sizemore was doing kind of all right things, and Penelope and Miller. It's like they weren't the biggest names, but there was a fair amount of creature features going on, and although this had a budget of 40 million, I think it was within Hollywood, it was towards the lower end. I think, well, not hugely low, but it's like 60-70 million was being spent on on movies during this time. Completely blanking now on horror movies like that, like Deep Rising and stuff like that, and Sphere and Event Horizon, all these kind of ones. They were kind of a little bit higher up in the budget, but anyway, maybe that's why there's a slightly lower cast with this one, but the cast works well. We follow at the start of the movie where we have an anthropologist, and they are somewhere in South America. I don't think it was disclosed, but they're with this tribe and they're drinking this thing, this concoction, and it doesn't have I don't think he's enjoying it. I think something goes wrong with it, and he starts to panic, and this anthropologist got some boxes that are going back to Michigan, I think. Oh, well, where is it? I can't remember now where it is. Anyway, it's like he's sending them back and to the museum where he works, and he's got his team there, and he's panicking. He's like stuck. He decides to hide away on this boat to kind of like try and find it, and he can't find his box. But it's actually like being left on the docks anyway, by mistake. But anyway, we follow kind of several weeks later this boat. It's in Lake Michigan. Yeah, the boat is on Lake Michigan, and it's got stuck. It's kind of ground up, and there's no one on board. They can't find anyone, and this is where we see like Tom Sizemore is the police officer, and they end up finding the bilge of the boat all these like bodies, stuff like that, these dead bodies, and they can't figure out what it is. So yeah, that's not so good. But then you have this package, the boxes which are on the boat, they get delivered to Penelope Ann Miller, who's obviously part of the team, part of the research team in the museum. She opens up. You have this Cathoga kind of statue in there. It's like about kind of how did they describe it? It's like it takes kind of like this, kind of like a chimera sort of thing. It takes like different elements from different animals and gets combined, sort of thing. Something like a chimera, I think it was anyway. And there's nothing else apart from these leaves, and they have this weird fungus on them. So she sends them off to the lab to be checked. But there's a death that happens to the security guard. Actually, he's smoking a joint in secret in the museum, and he gets killed by some unseen wheezing assailant. Sounds like this pretty big sort of thing that's kind of grabbed him and dragged him off. And so Tom Sizemore is like, well, I think the killer is still somewhere in the museum. So they kind of cordon off the museum and they start like looking through everything, trying to find it. I think down the bottom in the basement, they actually find this homeless person, and they kind of freak out. He scares them and he gets shot by the policeman. But they kind of put 2 and 2 together, and they think they've made 4, but they made like 5 or something like that, because it's like there's something that links the guy to the boat. They find something that was on the boat, that the name of the boat that he has, and they kind of link it. But then they start to find out that these old sewers, they kind of link that you can get to the museum from Lake Michigan, for all these old viaducts, kind of thing. So Tom Sizemore is still not convinced that this is our actual killer. I think he's down there he's hunting with these dogs, and the dogs get killed. Oh, sorry, that's a little bit later. I'm jumping a bit there. Anyway, like Penelope Ann Miller, she gets the kind of like the readouts back on these leaves, and they're kind of like hormone sort of things. It's like from all these different creatures, and she sees like the box that was on the leaf, and she notices a bug that went in there, and this huge bug comes out and it squashes it on the book. And then kind of the film goes on, we get a bit more of the story, and they start to think that maybe it's some sort of killer dog bred with a lizard or something that's turned into this big kind of Cathoga kind of thing, this kind of chimera creature. Maybe it could be like that. But then you start to get some more deaths happening, killing of police dogs getting killed and stuff like that. And it kind of, obviously, being as the film that it is, you get like that there's pressure from above to open the museum, because there's this big event with all these benefactors there, and they need to have it open. The mayor is demanding it and stuff like that. And of course, shit goes down. We start to see our kind of pretty cool looking kind of Cathoga creature, especially when it's like the practical effects, because that's the thing. It's like, I know we got Jurassic Park and stuff like that, but still, movies took quite a few years after that to catch up to how that looked. That was like just this anomaly that it was like, we can do CGI now, but it's do it fast and quick and cheaper than what it was with obviously like Jurassic Park, which is still why many films of sub Jurassic Park visual effects. So when we get our monster, it looks all right. It looks a little smooth. The texture's not so great, but it doesn't have any weight to it when it's kind of moving. It's something that it doesn't look really, really fake. I mean, there's many movies that come after this would look worse, but it just looks a little bit light to me. It doesn't have the impact, because when you see the practical, it's this big thing. It's like, wow, this thing has weight to it. But how it moves and jumps along, it just seems a little light. It would cause a bit of destruction to what it's landing on and things like that. So it didn't really take me out of it, though. It's kind of like you expect it from these movies. But it's just running amok, causing havoc, killing loads of people. And you kind of, there's a few twists. I think I'll stop there. It's like I think many people have seen this movie, and I remember the fire when it catches on fire. It doesn't look as bad as I remember, but it doesn't look that great when it's running around on fire. But it could have been a lot worse. It really could have been. I think they did a good job for the time. I think like what they were trying to achieve, the visuals, it looks okay. It's a little long, the movie, maybe. It's like almost 2 hours. I think it's 1 hour 50. But I noticed it's very dark. Like, it's kind of unnecessarily dark. It's like the practical looks good. I don't know if they're particularly trying to hide anything from how it looked, or if they're like, when it was light, I don't know. It's like, was the CGI not good enough when it was like light, and they managed to make it look a bit better when it was darker? I don't know, but it's a very dark film. And I suppose you're in a museum, but they keep it dark in there. Yeah, when you're in like the viaducts and down in the basement, that dark, but the whole museum's very dark all the time. And yeah, it's a very dark, shady movie, but it's still an enjoyable watch, and it's yeah, it's one of the better creature features of the 90s. As I said, the 90s wasn't bad for creature features. It's something that, like, creature feature, sci-fi, horror is very much my realm of what I love. So yeah, sometimes can easily talk bad of the 90s horror, but actually it's pretty important for progression in those two areas of horror, maybe for the visual side of things. So maybe I should be more grateful to the 90s horror movies that were produced at the time. But anyway, that's the end of the review. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll catch you next week. Thank you. Bye bye.